Welcome to episode 777 of the Wrestling World Podcast. We're going to recap AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's joint venture of Forbidden Door 2023, just happening tonight in Toronto, Canada. It's really a wonderful testament to how well AEW is doing right now and how far they've gotten in their work to really build up their talent to be at the level of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let's just put that point across and make that really clear. For them to go and be able to do this and put the show together, compared to last year, and be able to put this at all as they have, is pretty amazing. So this time last year, they went ahead and did the show in Chicago, and we look at last year's talent and look at what they were able to put out for this year. So first of all, in the main event, Jericho and Guevara did the Blood and Guts, well, that was the Blood and Guts Advantage match with Minoru Suzuki, Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara. Eddie Kingston, Shota Umino, Wheeler Yuta in that match. FTR against United Empire. Pac against Clark Connors, Miro, Malachi Black. Darby Allin, Sting, Shingo Takagi against Bullet Club. And then Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm with Ospreay with Aussie Open over Orange Cassidy. Claudio Castagnoli and Zack Sabre Jr. Jay White against Hangman and Page, Kazuchika Okada and Adam Cole. That was all set up for that. That was an IWGP Heavyweight Championship match, by the way. And then Jon Moxley and Hiroshi Tanahashi to finish off. This card, better. This card actually was better than last year. And I feel like overall, just the whole presentation was different as well, because you also include, with the announcers that were going on, Kevin Kelly now back in a more permanent role, now as the lead announcer for Collision, Excalibur for the most part, and then it would have a little mix of everybody else going on board like they did last year, where it was either Taz or Tony Schiavone, and they set that up pretty well. All together, really good stuff throughout the night, and this time, no Ring of Honor talent. Ring of Honor was not involved at all in this. They kept it really AEW stars against New Japan stars and really set that up to where AEW now is at a level where it can match up and be at the same level as New Japan Pro Wrestling. You look at the matches tonight and the setup where the younger talent got a number of choice matches against some of the stars in this card. And that was really what stood out to me in this night, looking what they've done and what they did this time around. Because the card, you already had 4 matches, main eventers that were just stacked. And then they put some other matches throughout the night that just really stood out and made some significant difference. It was a good display, a good showing for AEW of their talent across the board. And for the most part, you're talking about the talent that's strictly on Dynamite and not so much the ones that are in Collision. Because Collision, you can tell, is a different feel to it. So anyone that was on Collision, not necessarily except for CM Punk was the exception, you see here tonight at Forbidden Door. And the matches they had across the night was a very interesting mix. Good time for a lot of these matches. Nobody really had a short match. The shortest matches were at 0 hour. You got 40 minutes for the match with Ospreay and Omega, which is a well-told story. And then 27 minutes for Daniels and Okada. Those 2 matches definitely gave 10-man tag team match, was a definite winner. That was a home run tonight. And it really, not a bad match on the card. The women look great. Really not a bad match on the card. Let's go and talk about it. Now, Tom Lawler did have a match start off the night, and this is after the fact that Adam Cole, who's not medically cleared, sickness, we don't know what it is, we'll find out later, but a late scratch for Adam Cole, so his match with Tom Lawler was set up on Dynamite, on Rampage, but they did not do the match, but Lawler did get to wrestle in the early of the night and defeated Serpentico in a 4-minute, quick, kind of more or less a squash. Mogul Embassy beating Chaos and Athena over Billy Starks in the first round of the Women's Own Hard Cup first round match. I finally got up to watching El Fantasma over Stu Grayson. That was a pretty quick match. Los Ingobernables de Japón, Shingo Takagi, Bushi, Hiromi Takahashi, over the United Empire. There's a very interesting crew now with Jeff Cobb, Kyle Fletcher, and TJP now as part of that faction. And then into the matches tonight, MJF to start off the night, AEW World title against Hiroshi Tanahashi. See, the thing was, I'm glad we did not necessarily have to go and see some kind of a clinic with MJF. I didn't need that. For MJF, we got the cowardly heel shtick. And MJF did have, a lot of good moves in the match tonight. And really, this was almost kind of like a teaser. We didn't even get the full head through of the headspace of really what this match could have been. It was a good match, 15 minutes for it. And the back and forth was good. But MJF was like, he was totally playing like he was like an old school Ric Flair, an old school Rick Bockwinkel, their old school there to Zbyszko, walking away from the ring. A lot of, head games, mind games going across the start. We get some of the match. And then he's able to go ahead and outthink Tanahashi to win the match and sneak out with the title. So we want to see more of Tanahashi and MJF. Like, that was just a good teaser. We could use more of this. Maybe we'll get that down the line because I think that's something that I think just there's a story you'll be told about this. Because with MJF, right now Adam Cole is the focus. But now that Adam Cole, we have to find out what's going to happen. Then maybe Adam Cole's whatever this scratch of him on the lineup for Forbidden Door. Not really know what to say about that, but we had the idea already that MJF already feels like there's not much competition on the roster. So if he gets over here, and he has a Japan stars that start coming over here, and Tanahashi starts becoming a challenge to him, that would be really great. But we didn't get the full breadth of what the match could have been, but I did like what the match was. I want to say this too. Tonight was the first night I got to watch an AEW pay-per-view that was not at the movie theaters. For whatever reason, I know that they made some changes because there's a promotions company named Joe Head Promotions. I already talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, but there was a thing that happened where as I'm getting ready to go ahead and book my ticket at the Regal Cinema to watch the pay-per-view, it's going to be $26, half the price of the $49.99 for the pay-per-view. So I was ready to go and pay that. Well, they made changes for where the show was going to be held. The Regal Cinemas, where I'm at, decided to opt out of carrying the pay-per-view. So tonight I had to watch it at a Buffalo Wild Wings. And the pay-per-view is available at all the Buffalo Wild Wings locations in Palm Beach County, where I live, in Florida. And by the way, listeners, if you want to find out, there wasn't that many wrestling fans there. It was kind of fascinating of the crowd that was left there, which, of course, tonight being a Sunday night and only baseball on and not much else. Like, it's the dead time of sports. So for this to come in here and a chance for AEW to go and have an audience to pick up on pay-per-view for people to go and watch with the sound on, I don't know how it did in the other two locations. Where I'm at, it wasn't overly busy. We had there was one big party in there, and then I was sitting at the bar. They had the bar back, and the bartender took care of me. And the two times they actually just stood in awe and watched the big screen, because I got the big screen and they had the sound. The PA system was running the show the whole night. Really great. Rocky at Buffalo Wild Wings, thank you for that. The two times they really paid attention was when there was blood. So when Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay were, cutting each other up and bleeding profusely, they were watching. When Toni Storm got cut in her match with Will Nightingale, they were also paying attention. It was funny. They were just watching it, just intently, just staring at the screen, watching blood. I even pointed out to them, but I thought it was kind of funny. The experience is fine. The food's okay. It's sports bar food. Might have gone a little overboard on the food, the cost and all that, but, I'm not too necessarily into the next time going and buying wings. About 15 wings over there, lemon pepper, and it were $26. Wow. When did the price go up that much? So I'm not buying that again. I'm going to just go buy me a burger next time around. But, hey, everything else was good. They also make some pretzel knots, which I don't care for the beer cheese. I just want the honey mustard. But the pretzel knots, I had to buy 2 orders of that. That was really excellent. Just got to say that. So now, after the MJF match, MJF shenanigans secure the win. We go to the quarterfinal match with CM Punk and Satoshi Kojima. these two have been around for a long time. Kojima, I only know him because of his work in MLW, being a World Heavyweight Champion. If I'm correct, he was the first or the second of the MLW World Heavyweight Champions in that company back in the early 2000s. It goes back a while, but I remember that. Punk gets the win, but this was a good match. It was good to see Punk out there. Punk really getting a lot of... the response was wild for him. It's something about... It's only been, 2 weeks right now we have seen Punk back. It's as if whatever happened before, whatever kind of animosity, whatever the crowd might have felt, seeing him back there, he's back out there looking great. It's like he has not missed a beat, and they have done a really good job, AEW, where it feels like we know the behind the scenes of the fight, but it's the injury and the comeback from the injury that's been the really telling story, with an acknowledgement of what happened with the Elite. And CM Punk has come back in. He has not disrupted anything. I think the way you have used him in Collision the last 2 weeks has been excellent. And by the way, Collision, the production value, the way they put that show together, the way the presentation is with Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness, the teasing and all the stuff they do leading up throughout the show, the constant reminders of, the main event, and the way it's all polished like that, it's a beautiful look. It really does look great. All of it looks really good. It's not hitting the numbers that Dynamite is yet, and I don't know what the ratings were for last night and how it did, but it really did come out as a very good show overall. I got to say that. Orange Cassidy and Katsuyori Shibata were the real focus throughout the match, a four-way match for the international title. Meanwhile, Zack Sabre Jr. and Daniel Garcia happened to be in it as well. You get a point where Orange Cassidy is out of the ring, and then Zack Sabre Jr., Shibata, and Garcia are having a clinic. And then Cassidy comes back in later on and is able to go in and get the... And the thing was with Orange Cassidy, they've been telling the story constantly with the international title, and the amount of times, he has defended it 15 times this year. 15-0 coming in. He's got a lot of injuries. You see his arms all messed up, shoulders all messed up. He's got tape all over, but he is treading through. This is not a good match for him to go and come out there. Like if you're talking about like the amount of times he's out there wrestling on a constant basis, he's out there a lot. But he's out there. He gets in, gets the freshly squeezed gimmick into play, does it with a Shibata, does it with all the three other guys in the ring. Everything's set up. The nagging injuries are sold a lot. Nice to give time for the other stars in there, but, when the fact is that the international title is not going off of Cassidy anytime soon, and Cassidy gets the win anyway, which was a nice move here. Then we go into the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Now look, Jack Perry did a great job tonight. He stepped up with SANADA. That's a pretty big spot for him to fill. And knowing that, Jungle Boy's got some really significant matches this year, main event level, add Double or Nothing in the Fatal 4-Way, and then you get here into this match with SANADA, and Jungle Boy's the one that gets chosen to go up against, New Japan Pro Wrestling's World Heavyweight Champion and SANADA. Damn, that's quite commendable. SANADA looking great out there. Jack Perry did a great match. Hook at ringside, and that was at Jack Perry's request. Remember that. But then we see when Jack Perry loses, he is a consummate babyface up until he gets up to the top of the ring. Betrayal on Hook. Jungle Hook, everybody was all loving it. Always kind of felt like it was Hook was going to be the turn, but no, they did the other way. Swerve with Jack Perry turning heel. It's an interesting thing to see here because of the fact that Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, because of the effect on that. To see Christian Cage and the fact that he was able to go ahead and he lost to Jack Perry, right? Going back to Revolution. So Jack Perry gets that. And then Jack Perry, and the story now has to be told about MJF, where, Jack Perry is basically, he's just become a full hypocrite as to everything that MJF said to him in promos leading up to their Fatal 4-Way. Because he always said that Jack Perry, if that guy would just turn the other side, and go on to MJF's side, that he would actually be more, probably would go farther. But that the goody two-shoes of Jack Perry is not going to work. So the heel turn, it's nothing wrong with it. I think the decision to go ahead and say we've done enough with Jack Perry in this role, because if he's going to be a single star, they don't want to keep him as a face. But, they let him up there in that role, got up into one of the four young pillars, into that match against MJF. Now we're here. And now Jack Perry completely craps on the crop in Toronto. And on top of that with Hook. So now Jungle Boy and Hook are going to have a match. We're going to see a feud between them. Taz was at ringside doing commentary. Is completely shocked and, playing it out. So Taz, I'm guessing, is going to be involved in this as well. But Hook and Jungle Boy now, they got some talking to talk about. They're going to have some fighting to fight about. That's a hell of a story. I'd like to see if that's going to be one of the first things we see coming out on Dynamite Wednesday night, is to see Jack Perry come out early on, hopefully the start of the night, to explain this shocking heel turn, because no one saw this coming. I don't know if anybody was talking about this or predicting it, but I didn't see this coming. I was not paying attention to it. I always thought if it was going to be a heel turn, it would have been Hook. But no, it's Jack Perry. It's going to be a hell of a match. Tell you what, but I didn't think that Jack Perry would be the one that would go and make a change. So what do we do after this? Where does the change go coming up? I want to see what that's going to be. And if it's going to be him as a heel turn by himself, I have to think there may be somebody else that's going to be in there. And what does this mean about any affiliations with, see, a Christian Cage? Like, look, Jack Perry's now on the dark side with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. He's now on the dark side where MJF was wanting him to be. There's a lot of people that are kind of saying things like that, where it's like, okay, Jungle Boy, we didn't know if it was going to go around this route. The other question is the Jungle Boy character going away? Is Jack Perry now going to change gimmick? Is he going to change character? I imagine. I mean, they're not going to, if he's gone heel, they're not going to go for the Jungle Boy gimmick. They're not going to sing his song. They're not going to go, oh. I don't think that's going to happen. What do you do after this? Does Jack Perry now become a different persona as a heel? A lot of questions to ask. But a shocking heel turn, really mystifying. I want to know more. I got to find out what it's going to be all about. We get to the 10-man tag. Konosuke Takeshita, Shota Umino, and the Blackpool Combat Club against, and this is Don Callis, by the way, accompanying Takeshita. First of two times he goes out to the ringside. And then Eddie Kingston, Tomohiro Ishii, Stone Pitbull, and the Elite with Hangman, Adam Page, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. So you get Kingston and Moxley face-to-face. They were setting that up just to get to this match anyway, which is one of the things they wanted to get to, because Kingston's now back over in AEW out of Ring of Honor. I think recovering from injury, right? And Eddie's out there. People are all loving him. Him and Moxley have a big thing at it. They're confronting each other. And it was a real showcase for the development and the improvement and the advancement of Konosuke Takeshita. They really wanted to make that guy look massive. And one moment they really stood out a lot to me was when they showed Takeshita taking out Ishii with one shot, knocking him out. And they sold it really good on that commentary, sold it in the ring really well. Fantastic. And I'm just saying, now that you put Don Callis in here with him, it's magic. Look, I know everybody has their own thing to say about what's going on with AEW and, they're kind of the booking stuff. What they've done right now with the centering, with Ring of Honor now out of the picture, and they're standalone. And seeing what the AEW is doing right now, where they are setting the boundaries with Dynamite and Collision. They're good, proper boundaries. Like, you see the kind of stars that are over there on Collision with Andrade and House of Black and Miro, and the continuation of all those characters over there. And at the same time, CM Punk going out there, FTR going over there. A lot of established veteran stars over there. It's not so much the younger stars as it is the veterans that have a lot of star power, a lot of recognition from WWE and other places that are on that side on Collision. Meanwhile, it's really more of the younger grassroots stars that stick to Dynamite, which is fine because people are already familiar with them there. Works well. And I'm just saying, they do a thing where they do develop stars. I mean, listen, Konosuke Takeshita was never in the conversation with the other New Japan stars, but I think now he's starting to get there. Like what he's been doing right now at AEW, like his star is rising quick. And the affiliation with Don Callis only steps it up more. I think the fact that they did Don Callis and took him away from Kenny Omega, and now Don Callis gets to go ahead and mentor with other stars, becomes the manager, that mouthpiece gets to be in there in that whole mix, does help a lot. I think Takeshita's heel turn has been very successful so far. It's stepping up, and he's looking good. And I also like the fact he's not kind of affiliated at all with Blackpool Combat Club. He's just kind of like, there is a kind of an understanding, but not an affiliation, not a direct, partnership, but a direct connection to the BCC, which I like that. Great match, by the way. Women's World title was great, too. I got to give it up to Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale, this time last year, I was watching her set up for the featherweight title and the featherweight tournament over in MLW when they were setting up the first women's champion over there, of which Taya Valkyrie won the belt. And it wasn't that long. I want to say it was like a year ago I watched Willow Nightingale against Holiday in like a quarterfinal match for the featherweight title. Like, Willow Nightingale, she's charismatic. She's got a interesting personality about herself. I remember she was on commentary as well and setting things up. But I was like, okay, she's interesting. But look at how far she's gone. Court Bauer must have seen something where he saw her in other organizations and brought her into the fold. And Willow Nightingale's coming to AEW, and she just honestly has elevated right on up. New Japan has looked at her. She's a strong style champion now on the women's side, and she's just sliding it up. Great match, by the way. And Toni Storm, now you had the part where you had the Outcasts out there. Only women's match on the card, by the way. So a very men-intensive card. Well, it's fine. What it is. And also no Stardom stars, which was also interesting that we kept mention of the fact that New Japan, they're now touched to Stardom, and none of those stars came over here. We didn't get any of that either. But Toni Storm, quick thinking with the ref use Storm Zero to retain the title. The way they set it up was really good. I like that. And then we get to a couple of matches like, okay, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, 40 minutes, magic. I mean, damn well ring magic in there, those guys. First 10 minutes, you got Don Callis and the whole setup of him bringing out military-grade security to go ahead and accompany Ospreay to the ring. And then we get into the match. Rematch for Wrestle Kingdom. They set up where they showed clips from their Wrestle Kingdom match. Was it last year or the year before? And these guys tearing it up. Also, say they were Ospreay's being thrown in the wood and his head going through it. And so Ospreay falls the same way across by using a piece of the announce table to make Kenny Omega go bloody. Then Omega uses the stair steps to bloody up Ospreay. And these guys tell a great story. And then at the end of the night, why Paul Turner did not tell Don Callis to go back out, because he'd already kicked him out of the match. He comes back out again, does not get kicked out again, does not get escorted out. Just want to make that point. That should have been said there if they're going to follow the rules. But Callis is out there, gives Ospreay the screwdriver that's been used many times in storyline, and then nails Omega, and Will Ospreay near fall. And then he hits an Oz cutter again to Omega, and then another near fall. And then what was it? And then it was the one-winged angel that Ospreay hit on Omega, of which he kicked out at one. And so like the crowd was all up at it, and Omega looked phenomenal. Like there was just all this extra intensity and, adrenaline that he was going through right there in the match, along with, trying to go ahead and go after Don Callis, which he could never get his hands on. Eventually he will. But they went a long time in this match, and Omega just couldn't overcome all the shit that was going on. And Ospreay wins the U.S. title. The one title change we get of the night. A good one. Great match. That match was the best match of the night. Nothing against Okada, Danielson. They told a great story too, but let me tell you, from all of the matches of the night, to be the last one, that was going to be a tough act to follow. Even when it comes down to the 6-man tag, Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, Sammy Guevara, against Sting, Darby Allin, and Tetsuya Naito. Seeing Naito out here along with this, and Sting, by the way, again, as always, he's 63 years old. This guy's still going on out there. He's not slowing down. He doesn't look like he's slowed down at all. He looks like he's still working what he was in TNA. Seriously, you're talking about, 15 years later, he still looks like he's still got the same kind of energy that he had in TNA. Same kind of work ethic, same kind of speed and pace as he did in TNA. How does he do it? Guy just has it. I don't know what he does, but it's amazing. They did a great job with Darby Allin in this match with him and Suzuki and the whole setup of that. A nice face-to-face. Jericho and Sting, the fact that they never faced each other before, ever. That's, and it's true, because by that time, Sting was so involved in NWO, and Jericho was already out by the time Sting came back. So I guess Jericho never got to work with Sting as, the Surfer Sting. So he never got to work with the Crow Sting either. And there was never any sense in the way, because Chris Jericho was never going to reach that level. I mean, he could have, but the thing was, there was a glass ceiling on Chris Jericho, and then he left in 98. And it made sense where they put him in here where, okay, nothing. But it's kind of fascinating that, Jericho was there for 2-3 years in WCW at that point, and then left. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, he would have never had any storylines or anything where he would have run into the Sting, not even have a squash match with Sting, or just some kind of a glorified squash. That never happened either, because Sting was never used that way. Especially by the time we got to this, Sting wasn't even going in that ring that much just to wrestle, because it was such an attraction to get Sting out there in the first place. So, yeah, it's nice to see them in the ring together. It was good to finally have that moment. That was nice. Darby Allin, I give credit for. He has sold the Judas Effect for the most effective time I've ever seen in my life. The fact he was sliding out of the ropes, made sure to hook himself on the ropes so he would stop at the right point, and Jericho hit him with the Judas Effect, and it looked good. And when we look at the replay, it looked good. And Darby Allin sold it so well. I don't like the Judas Effect necessarily. It's not a great move, but Darby Allin, the MVP tonight, because he sold finally sold that big major move about as good as you can get. Really good stuff. Sting taking a 630 from Sammy Guevara. By the way, we saw that Jericho was kind of obligating Sammy Guevara. He didn't want to do it. He goes along anyway. So you see there's a little bit of animosity still. And nevertheless, you get through it as Sting, Darby, Naito win in 15 minutes. And then we get to Danielson and Okada. And when you get to this match, Danielson comes out like Ring of Honor 2009. He comes out to Europe's the final countdown in the maroon gear, in the same look like he looked like out there, except he does the braids, kind of gives that UFC look to himself. And I was wondering, at 42 years old, the Bryan Danielson that could have been out there with Kazuchika Okada a while back, in their primes. But, Okada's still rocking it. And Danielson, wasn't too late for this match. It was a nice to have. And I wonder how much time they were going to have. If we didn't have the Tom Lawler-Adam Cole match, I wonder what matches would have gotten less time. Because the thing is, I think we got more time for Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega as a result. And I don't know what other matches got more time or what they were good to get in time, but everybody got good time. Anyway, but this match, clearly submissions, a couple of seconds to go and get a good stare in front of each other at the corners. Crowd is lighting up for it. This was just money. A couple times you try to see Okada trying to get the Rainmaker finisher on him. doesn't go. Danielson looking like he's a little bit shaken up. The effects of the head injuries and the neck injuries and all this other stuff going on. Playing possum to come back on Okada. And he gets him with the label lock. Submission to finish. I'm surprised to see that Okada that does take the submission and Danielson gets the win. Great. Love that. That's really good stuff. So overall, the match was all good, and we get to this. The whole night's good. The whole night's really good. I like it. And I really enjoyed the pay-per-view. I wasn't expecting it. This is an exhibition, the way it was set up. They did a really good job with all of it. And the whole setup for it was pretty well done. With a couple of things in matches where MJF looks very strong, gets away with a win. Orange Cassidy gets the win here, but also has to go through a lot of adversity and sneak a win in because he's still so injured. Jack Perry, valiant effort as the babyface before he turns heel, which is a very interesting turn of events. Will Ospreay takes takes the win over Omega. That looked great. Darby Allin looked great out there. I love the show. It was an A show. With the fact that we didn't necessarily have storylines that would have... I do it again. Hands down. Forbidden Door this year. Better than last year. This is the way you book it. Maybe have an extra women's match because it would be nice to add a little more to the mix. But, they did a really good job with what they had. New Japan looked really good. I thought AEW stood up to the challenge. All the stars looked really good out there. And it just... Overall, there was just good chemistry, good vibe. That Toronto crowd was just eating it up and loving it. Really fun night. That's it for the night. That is the show. I'm coming back this Wednesday. We'll go ahead and do a little fallout from Forbidden Door because by the time we come back on the program, we'll find out what the fallout is on Dynamite. We'll get to see what's going on with Monday Night Raw and their setup for Money in the Bank, which, of course, then next Sunday, so next Saturday, I do a post show for Money in the Bank, which, again, that's a 3 o'clock start time. But I will still do it at night after I get a chance to go and catch the whole show. But it was good. And the Buffalo Wild Wings experience was not bad. I can't complain about that. So anyway, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Finding the shows you always do. Please make sure, if you haven't done so, to please subscribe and share. Please rate and review Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also you can find the show at Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, everywhere else. Of course, on social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at King of Podcasts, the website for all my content, kingofpodcasts.com, WrestlingIsrael.com is the website for the show. Come back for another Wrestling Israel podcast because wrestling needs us.